Hi everyone, and welcome to a Bowls New Zealand discussion around liquor licensing and the various requirements that local authorities have of clubs within the country regarding liquor licences. I'm Chris Lander, General Manager of Clubs and Community for Bowls New Zealand, and I'm joined today by Greame Scott from Alcohol Licensing Limited, who are consultants to liquor licence holders. Greame is a life member and patron of the Auckland Bowling Club, and he's also the president of Auckland Bowls and the president of the Auckland Kitty Hawks. Greame, welcome, and thank you very much for giving up some of your precious time to us today. It's lovely to have you here, and perhaps you can just give us a bit of an overview on your life in bowls and how we came to be sitting here talking about liquor licensing.
First of all, Chris, thanks very much for the opportunity. I'm always happy to get involved in looking after the members, the clubs, bowls throughout New Zealand. I think the best way to start, if I can, is to say that I started playing bowls in 1968 in Wanganui.
Yeah.
As a result of injuries that I sustained. I had to give up rugby, I had to give up badminton.
It's a story not unfamiliar to a few of our members out there, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I said to my father, what should I do? And he and Mum were bowlers from Dannevirke. So he suggested I take up bowls, and I started playing bowls in Gonville. In 1968, I had a few years in the courts at that stage. I started out in Dannevirke, then after 2 years moved to New Plymouth, Stratford, and then Wanganui for 4 years, and then Napier for 5 years in the courts, where I played bowls at Port Ahuriri. So after 12 years in the courts, I then moved down to Wellington as a licensing inspector, and I had 9 years in Wellington, where as a group of 5 or 6 other inspectors we covered the whole country.
Sure.
And during my time I covered most of the country, and I played my bowls at Victoria for 8 years, and my last year down there in 82 I played at Johnsonville.
Yep.
So during that 9 years as a licensing inspector, I spent a lot of time, as you can appreciate, visiting licensed premises, and when I moved into an area, I made it a point of mine to visit every club, and of course my interest being in bowls, I took particular interest in
Spend a bit longer in their bars than you did the other guys.
Yes, yes, and it was always a pleasure, always a pleasure. And during that time I played in a lot of tournaments. Of course you get invited by the Hospitality Association down the South Island and the West Coast and up in Auckland. So I met a lot of people in the bowling community and had a lot of fun. A lot of headaches, a lot of hangovers, but a lot of fun. After 21 years with the Justice Department, I retired and came to Auckland in 83 and set up a licensing consultancy. I was the first one to do it in 83, and I've been operating as a consultant since 1983. Since that time I've been playing bowls in the North Shore, from Silverdale down to Birkenhead, Northcote. I had a year at Devonport, and the last 25 years I've been at Auckland Bowling Club. And the Auckland Bowling Club is a special place.
Yes.
A lovely location.
Yeah, brilliant location.
Small club, very historical, so
Yeah.
very much behind it. And it was just a special place to create a social bowling environment, and we're lucky that we've got a good board, a focus board that is driving the club in the right direction for the future. I've got a lot planned.
Yeah.
But I've been on the committee, been on every position in the committee, and after many years I think they realised that it was time to get rid of this old fellow and move him off the board.
Give him a few gongs on the way out.
Yeah, and they made me a life member and a and patron.
Yeah,
So,
well, that doesn't come along without a lot of effort, so well done. And
So-
I'm sure that the contribution, you are no question underplaying the contribution you've made, but it's fantastic to hear
so
it anyway.
it's great because I love the mentoring and I love supporting the new players that are coming through, the new executive, and so it's great. My focus now as Auckland Bowls president, and hopefully for another year or so on the board,
Sure.
is to put something back into the sport from all the pleasure and the fellowship, camaraderie that I've taken out of it or received
Great.
out of it.
Well, Graham, that's fantastic. A really good insight into how we got to where you are right now in terms of 50 odd years of playing the game and the experience you've had in this area that we're talking about, which is liquor licensing in particular. And as I said at the top of the meeting, we've got a number of clubs that have actually put a few questions your way. And I should say from the outset that what Graham's going to offer here in response to those questions is his opinion as best he can provide it. But we're not grilling him as a lawyer on this subject. He's a consultant, so certainly anything that you're still not clear on or that you wish to speak with your local authority about in more detail, you should certainly do that. And in fact, you're more than welcome to talk to Graham at some stage as well, one-on-one. His details will appear at the end of this this video, so he will certainly have his availability shown at the end of the meeting.
Well, the big point I'd like to make is that clubs enjoy a special place in the legislation.
Yeah.
They have done for decades. But we need to remember that when I started playing bowls back in the 50 odd years ago, 60, almost 60, we had Rothmans. I was a smoker then, smoked packets of Rothmans. They were a major sponsor.
Yeah.
The breweries were a major sponsor.
Yeah.
Those sponsorships have dwindled over the years. We then turned to gaming, and the gaming dollar has dwindled over the years because the money that some gaming trusts are getting is going to a specific area and is not available to the wider sporting or cultural environment. So therefore clubs really need to be looking at their own operation and their futures as far as the viability is concerned, and how do they create new members, how do they create that income to support their club in the future.
Absolutely.
Bowls New Zealand's doing a great job to achieve this, and I strongly recommend that with all these questions we've got, that clubs look at Bowls New Zealand's constitution and look at using that constitution to form their new constitutions to accommodate the changes that are happening.
Sure. Yeah.
Over the years I've been made aware, particularly as a licensing inspector or as a consultant, that decisions that are being made are not always made with all the facts. So some decisions are not as good as others. And what clubs have to understand is that we have the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act. This is what we have to work with. This is what we must understand.
So apologising later ain't going to cut it anymore. Is that,
No,
is that
not
what
in-
you're saying?
Because we enjoy this special place in the industry and have done for decades, it's slowly disappearing, but 99% of clubs fly under the radar.
Yeah.
It's only when you have drinking and driving issues, noise issues, fighting, disorder, intoxication, that you suddenly become more actively controlled.
Yeah.
So I suggest very strongly that clubs have got to think about this legislation and understand that if they do it properly, they won't have any issues. Volunteers, managers, staff, whoever, need to be aware of the people that are coming into the club rooms, because it could be someone that's trying to catch you out. So if you're not proactive and you're not welcoming them in and all over them, then you could get into trouble. So the better you do your job, the better it is for your club and for the sport in general.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's really good. Good point. Good comment.
If you have any questions or you need any information, the Health Promotion Agency, HPA, it's a matter of the club going online, and at the web page they have a title, Alcohol in Clubs, and then you click on the tab which has Clubs Toolkit.
Oh yeah, okay.
And that toolkit, the Clubs Toolkit, has all the information that a club needs to operate happily.
No.
The other thing I'd like to suggest to clubs is, and we'll cover this in questions and answers, but all clubs should, with their regular staff, go online to a Serve Wise free training website and register and do some e-learning, and that will give the people behind the bar, the people that are responsible, knowledge of their duties, responsibilities and obligations.
Yeah. Sure. Excellent. All right. Well, again, we can add that at the end of the show too, so everyone sort of understands where they can gain
that
information. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll crack into these questions, and I think I'm right in saying in the order we received them.
Right.
I'm not going to name names.
Yeah.
I'm just, those that have put these in, I'm sure will recognise their questions. But for the benefit of everybody, we'll just roll through these and see how you felt about them. Greame has had the benefit of looking at these prior to this meeting, so I'm not hitting him cold with them. So from the top, what are the rules regarding using alcohol as raffle prizes or tournament prizes? It's a really good first question.
Yeah, it's very good, very good. I know we all do it and have done it. However, legally you cannot raffle alcohol. So that's a no-no.
Right.
Alcohol can be part of a prize in a tournament or a gift to somebody that's been an outstanding volunteer or whatever. However, when you're running in a tournament and alcohol prizes, now in this day and age, we have a lot of younger people that are winning these tournaments, playing better than I am and you.
And me, definitely better than me. Absolutely.
So we need to have some alternative available.
Yeah.
So we can't promote that as a prize when we've got young people.
It's back to your comment around the sort of brewery sponsorship of years ago, isn't it?
So
the answer really is no.
No, they aren't. I'd be suggesting vouchers for Food Town or
and things.
whatever. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Good answer. Do members working voluntarily as barmen have to be licensed, and what are their responsibilities?
As I just mentioned, they should do the Serve Wise course. It's not essential because a lot of smaller clubs don't have the members to do it, and it's a volunteer system. But they should be aware of the duties and obligations. It's just common sense.
And it's the simple stuff, as you say. How old are you? No, I'm sorry, mate. You've had a little bit too much to drink. You've fallen over 3 times getting here to the bar. I think we get to call you a taxi.
And
all right. So that Serve-Wise thing is going to answer.
I think working on that one, and whether I've got it in the right place or not, but I'm of the mind today that every person who is a member of a club, bowling club, whatever, should carry their membership card.
Yes.
So that when you've got big tournaments on, whatever, and you're not sure of anybody, ask for their card. When they come in and they register, but then there are the people that sneak in and may abuse it. So cards to me are going to be the future of controls.
All right. No, that's a good point. So in terms of Chris Lander going behind a bar at his club in the Wairarapa, just to help out because he's seen that, John's been there for 3 hours and just needs a breather. That's okay, providing I understand
Yep.
what I need to be looking after. Yeah.
There is a manager appointed who has a manager's certificate. They don't have to be present in a club situation, although the agencies, some may expect them to be 20 minutes away or whatever.
Right.
That is not a legal requirement.
Okay.
That's just common sense.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, no, that's fine. Good, and I think it answers that question quite comfortably. That's
However, can I mention,
Yeah, please
Chris,
do, yeah.
you make a mistake, you also get prosecuted for selling to minors or
Yeah.
intoxicated person, but the person whose name is up as the manager also
right.
suffers a suspension or
Yeah,
cancellation.
so
Yeah.
they need to trust me to start with.
Correct, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
as do the club, clearly, because they don't want to lose their manager.
No.
All right, so common sense prevails in a small club. If you've got 20 people in the room and just someone needs a breather, by all means get behind the bar, but, follow the rules.
Follow the rules, yeah.
Okay, good. And this question's actually been answered by your last answer, I think. Is it compulsory to have at least one licensed bar manager, and what are his or her responsibilities? You've spoken to that.
Yep, the manager is responsible for compliance with the requirements of the Act, which is reduction of alcohol abuse,
Yeah,
and the conditions of the licence.
sure. Which will vary from place to place and
No.
region to region?
No,
Okay.
the conditions of the licence are mandatory.
Okay.
So can I just go through that quickly?
Yeah, please, absolutely, yeah.
Water.
Yep,
Water has to be available at all times. One I love. Food
yes,
must be available at all times. And that is a question mark. Information about alternative forms of transport must be available at all times to customers.
yep,
Notice about prohibited persons, intoxication, forms of ID must be available. That's
In
about
terms
it.
of food then, what does and doesn't qualify as food? Is a packet of chippies and a packet of peanuts?
No. Peanuts,
So it has
chips.
to be
It's got to be.
more than a snack.
It's got to be more than a snack.
So a sandwich or a toasted sandwich
Supposed to
or
be substantial food, but of course, when you're opening a bowling club, as many do, from 4 o'clock till 7,
Yeah.
you don't expect them to have that. But there have been cases where licensing inspectors have taken clubs to the authority for suspension for not complying with that rule.
right.
But it's,
So it probably pays to have a microwave and a freezer full of pies or something, does it?
yes, it does.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
And then, and then of course you just top it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And low alcohol is another one. You
Yes.
must have that available,
Yes.
and check the use by date because the inspectors do.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Good. All right, great, thank you. And the final one from this set of questions was, what are the rules around happy hours?
Happy hours are something that should not be for an hour. The longer they are, the better, I would suggest, because if you say happy hour and you're providing a price which is a little bit less, people may try to cram.
Binge drinking.
Yeah, binge drinking.
Yeah.
So if you've got a happy hour,
Yeah.
it's better to spread it out over 2 or 3 hours.
Special price evening or whatever it might be. Yeah, okay. That's a
But
really
don't-
good point though, isn't it? Because most people would think happy hour, let's just do it for an hour and we don't have to give away much money, but in the end they probably will because they'll sell as much beer.
Yeah,
but yeah. I think you've answered the question. I think the fact that we're going to just extend that period of time from 60 minutes to perhaps 90 or 120 or even more for a special night once a month or whatever that the club decide to do.
It's a matter of being a responsible host
Yeah.
and not asking people to drink more than they would normally.
Don't buy 3 at once just because it's cheap now.
Yeah.
Have your third one when you're ready for it. It won't cost you any more.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. So our next question, a single question from a club was, is it legal to hire out the club for a function and take each person's details by signing them in as a guest for the evening with our own bar staff and manager rather than taking out a special licence with the District Licensing Council or DLC or whoever it might be?
Yeah,
So it's quite a long question.
it's a good question.
But it speaks to just recording of names and so forth, I guess.
It's a good question, and that's a question a lot of clubs ask and have issues with. Again, that comes back to the location, and the rapport they have, or what they have been doing in the past. As a club, you are entitled to serve alcohol during the hours authorised in your licence. You can serve alcohol to any member of the club,
Yep.
any guest of that member who is in the company of that member.
Still there. Yeah. the
Still
member
there,
still
so
needs
as
to
long
be
as the member's there,
Yeah.
they go, the
Yeah.
guest has to go.
Yeah.
Any member of any reciprocal club,
Yes.
and I would suggest that clubs think ahead. When the next renewal of their licence comes up, they say to the licensing inspector, can we have the additional condition added to our licence, please, that guests of reciprocal members
Nice.
can also be
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Now, you can only get that one added in. It's not an automatic
Right.
as of right.
So it's a really good point that clubs should pick up on out of this, that they should just
Yeah,
make a
yeah,
note of that
yeah.
next to their diary for the date that it's up for
And when it's up, and ask for that to
reissue.
be put
Yeah,
in.
yeah. Yeah, no, good point.
A lot of clubs don't even think about these things, and they don't worry about it. The enforcement authorities don't check either. So,
But it's one that could trip you up, isn't
it
it?
could trip you
Yeah.
up. So it's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yep,
No,
yep.
that's a good call. Okay, thank you. This one, I think I know the answer to, but it'll be a good test of me. And I did ask for a clarification on the question because I wasn't too sure about it. But it speaks about whether a special licence is required to sell meals at the club. It doesn't really specifically refer to alcohol, but it is referring to non-club members. So whether it falls under liquor licensing or not, I'm not sure, but you're cool.
Right, right. Good question, and it's one that I know a particular bowling club down your way is having issues with at the moment.
Okay.
When you're open, the club can allow anyone into the premises and serve them food at any time they're open.
Okay.
There is no sign. There's no restrictions whatsoever.
Right.
If you're playing bowls or you're having food, anyone can be there. It is only when you want to supply alcohol that you have the licensing requirements. Yeah.
All right. That answers the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
perfect.
food should be available all the time, as I mentioned. So yeah.
Yeah. But there's no sort of, I guess, contractual, commercial classification type requirement of a club to be able to sell someone a sandwich or a piece of fruit or even a counter meal for the for the weekend that they happen to be there for an event. If there's no extension to the license required, that's a different argument. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next one up, we're getting through these. What is the licensing situation for a bowling club connected as an adjunct to a chartered club where the bowling club operates a bar under the license of the parent club but does not have any licensed manager within its membership?
Well, simply, it's not their responsibility. It's the club's responsibility.
Comes back a wee bit to that earlier question around having a manager but doesn't have to be on site
Correct,
necessarily.
yeah,
I
yeah.
expect with a chartered club they would have to be, but
Normally, the charter clubs have that requirement.
yeah.
I've noticed a number of decisions or licenses coming out that say on a Thursday, on a Friday or Saturday, when they're busy, then they must have a manager on duty
Right,
from 4
right.
p.m.
Okay.
But it's not their not in this situation. It's not their
It's the
responsibility.
licensed holder's responsibility,
licensing,
and
yeah.
they need to allocate the responsibility for running the ancillary bar or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
it might be. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Good. That answers that one. That's great. What's this one here? From mid-December to mid-January, a number of councils seem to close their offices for special licence requests. Is this unique or a standard council behaviour? And then a comment that there is an impact on late requests for functions, which affects revenue, obviously, as a result.
Right. Again, I don't know what rapport they have, or what the interaction they have with council, but from the 20th of December in every year to the 15th of January the following year is 1 day.
Right.
Now, they say, the council say we're closed when rubbish. You can't tell me that they all take time off during that time.
Doesn't happen.
No,
Yeah.
and I know for a fact that there are people there working
Yeah.
because I still get a lot of stuff
Yeah,
through. So
sure.
it's there, but it's a legislative requirement that the working days, the councils have 20 working days in which to process these applications.
Right.
So if you put an application in on the 15th of December, they don't have to have that back to you until the beginning of February. So
Yeah, right.
you've lost all that time. So clubs have to be aware of this Christmas break in the legislation, the working day, and plan ahead.
So sorry, I don't want to jump in too quickly there, but I'm just thinking out loud here. So instead of asking for a special license for a particular day, is a club better to say, December's always a very busy month for us because of functions and so forth? Is it possible for a club to attain a December license, for want of a better term, where they can extend their hours and extend their availability of their premises to people who aren't necessarily members?
It comes back to this issue of members, not members, but people there for the purpose of playing bowls.
Yeah.
Your license is specifically focused on playing bowls.
Yeah.
You are providing a service to your members, guests of members, reciprocal members and guests.
And
so
potentially their guests, yeah.
I would suggest that, again, we go back to Bowls New Zealand's template for the membership list, and everybody that comes to your club as a casual bowler during December, I would suggest, hopefully, pays $15 or $20 a
Nominal
head
figure, yeah.
towards playing the bowls, for the bowls, the mats and the jack and scoreboards and all the rest of it. So that fee is treated as a day membership fee.
Subscription. Yeah,
Subscription.
Okay. Nice.
And those persons that are playing the sport, because we go back 40 years ago when I was inspector, we had ancillary licenses.
Yes.
And those ancillary licenses were based around people who played the sport, not the members as such, but
Yep.
it was everyone playing.
Activity.
Participating in the activity. So unfortunately that doesn't happen. It's more specific, but it is still there. If you are playing bowls and you've paid, or you have filled in the tablet, you've the COVID-19, it's all a trace, it's all a access thing, then you are entitled to play and participate as a member of the club facilities. So there is to me,
There's no way around it, but there's a way through it.
there's a way through it.
Yeah.
It's not a requirement to get a special license for that activity, because it's not outside the activities of the club.
You've sold a membership,
Yep.
basically.
And they're playing bowls. It's not a wedding. It's not a stag party or a hen's party. It's a bowling activity. So what do you need a special license for?
Yeah, sure. That's a really good answer, and I'm sure it's one that people will be pleased to hear, because it's a very simple workaround, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
As you say, as long as bowls is being played,
As long as they're
or
playing
intended to be played, I guess. I mean, if they all get there and they've got an event that's lined up and it hoses down with rain, then
Yeah.
but there's going to be some
There will
leeway
be,
on that.
But that's a
You've
rare
got to prove that
yeah,
it was a
yeah,
bowling event
yeah,
to start
yeah,
with,
yeah,
don't you?
Yeah. I wouldn't. I'd just use common sense.
Yeah.
And be a responsible host. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, now the next one is really interesting off the back of what you just talked about with guests of members. So it asks, a club member may bring a non-club member guest into the club for a drink, which we know. But is there a limit as to the number of guests that one member can bring?
Good question. In my opinion, my humble opinion, you can have 100.
Right.
There is no limit. The law does not state a limit.
But if
There's
that member
nothing
leaves, the 100 go with it.
Well, everyone's got to go. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sure.
Like I had my birthday party down at the club. And there were 120 odd people there.
Yeah.
I knew them all. They were there for a purpose.
As
And
long as you were there.
I was there. Everything was okay.
Okay.
However, and I'm not always up to date with every decision that comes out from the authority, but it's been suggested to me that the number is 10 persons that a member can cover as guests.
And that could be something that council live with rather than have dictated, do you think? Or is it something that might be tested
No, that's been tested.
Right.
And I understand the decision said, the chairman said that they would suggest that 10 is a reasonable number.
Right. So again, discretion, common sense.
at the end of the day.
Don't push the envelope.
Yeah.
You've got,
Yeah.
if you want 100 people in there, make sure you've got 10 members in there.
Well, that's
I guess.
it. Yeah. And as you always find that there's more than
There's going to be
more than enough
members in there, aren't there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good answer. I hope that helps out. Where that one came from. This one we've sort of touched on, I think. The process is not difficult, but council require 20 working days prior to the function. Sometimes we get requests for the next week or two, and that does not work with the council. I guess my question is, when are we not required to get council consent? Is there any time at which... I think there's perhaps one here that I've picked up on rather than no, and that would be for a funeral wake.
Well, the
an
one is there. Every council's different. Locally, they suggest you should have a special licence for a funeral or a wake. Right. My argument, again, is that if it's a member of the club, if it's the patron or a president or a member of the club, a volunteer, everyone that's going to that event is a members, and others are guests, so they're all guests. People don't die to order. So conveniently, yeah. Right. So common sense applies, and again, councils apply common sense. I know in Auckland you can get a special licence with 1 or 2 days for that event. However, why?
You probably don't need it. Okay.
But again, common sense would apply.
Refer to membership and guests. Okay. Nice. Good. Thank you. We have had our hands slapped by local licensing authority recently, so a few questions in response. A volunteer working behind the bar and consuming alcohol, would this be a breach of the Act?
If it is, I've been breaching the Act for years.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think in practice,
and when I was
we're all
working
guilty of that probably.
As a barman back in the 60s as well. But however, let's be honest, common sense again would tell you staff should not drink.
No.
In a bar, in a restaurant, that's really a no-no, because if I'm in there having something to eat and I'm watching someone drinking, I know I've got someone that I can bait and get away with all sorts of things. So my policy when I was running a bar, when I had bars, was no drinking. And at my club, if you're running a function, no drinking. You don't drink, because someone's going to have you on.
Well, your judgment's impaired too if you've had a couple too many, and then suddenly the whole licensing thing gets thrown out of whack, doesn't it?
Yeah. However, but with clubs, we have volunteers doing these things, and everyone that they go behind the bar to help out, and they're all drinking. So you're drinking with your friends. I don't really consider that to be a problem. The issue is that if the person behind the bar is impaired or intoxicated, or the inspectors or the police come in and say, well, you've had too much to drink, it's a $500 instant fine.
Right.
So you don't want to be put in that position, because that could affect your licence, etc. So at the end of the day, common sense.
It's coming in a few times here, isn't it?
It does indeed.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's good. And I think, to be fair, it's easy to say, well, common sense isn't the law, but I think it will get an awful lot of sympathy from the law, won't it, where you applied it. And you're tested. They say, well, we did this, we did that, we did the other. We've sort of respected what the intention of this thing is. And they'll say, yeah, you have, or no, you haven't. So, stick with common sense, people. It's it's the unwritten rule.
That's,
and we talked about the funeral one, so that's fine. When does accepting social members for a particular function become a farce, or is there an acceptable process to follow? Members is the word there, isn't it? If they're social members, they're members.
They're members, yeah. So a social membership leads to full members. So the more social members you have, the more people you're going to get coming back to your club and bringing others back, the better for your club.
But they are a member of the club.
They're a member of the club.
And therefore there is no restriction on their involvement.
No.
And I guess maybe it's not written in this question, but maybe that's to the sort of 1 day subscription, or you buy a $20 subscription for today and you're a member for the rest of the year. Basically, it's our limited playing member role, or whatever it might be. Okay, good. All right, we're getting through these. Questions around when a special licence is needed. Firstly, an outside group using the club for a bowling event.
Again, we're coming back to the playing bowls. They pay a fee for the use of the bowls and the equipment and your expertise.
Quite right.
That's a day membership, or that's a social membership. That fee covers their
bowling activity.
And I would suggest, if you're playing, let's understand, I think clubs need to understand, a special licence is for an event that is outside the activities of the club. So weddings,
Yeah.
hens parties,
40th
stag
birthday
parties,
party,
40th
whatever it might be,
birthdays,
yeah.
maybe, yeah, those sort of things.
Without bowls.
Without bowls, yeah.
Yeah. Can you make outsiders members for a day, charging them $1 each? Well,
I wouldn't
$1
charge.
cheap.
That's cheap, yeah, that's great.
In principle, yes,
Yeah, but
yeah,
you're doing,
make
you're
it
not
20
doing,
and you'll
yeah,
get it.
You're
Yeah.
not doing any good for your club by
No,
charging $1.
make it 20 and they'll
Yeah,
pay it, or
yeah,
15 or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right,
no,
good.
So that would cover that.
Perfect. So what do we need to be able to do to use or to get a licence/permit or use it so that we can sell alcohol to members? Ours is a small club and the cost of an individual licence is prohibitive. So I guess they're saying they're a very small club
Yes, I
who
know.
probably have a licence cost of, I don't know, is it $1,000 or more a year?
At the most, or that club would, it'd be lucky to, every year it'd cost them 150 in annual fees, 161 I think it is, mightn't even be that, and every 3 years it would cost them the licence fee,
Which is,
360.
okay, so
Something round-
across
roughly.
3 years they're up for $600 or $700. So.
Yeah, so it's about $200 a year,
Yeah.
plus your manager, one manager. But everyone needs to understand, and I'm pretty sure we all do, that if you want to sell or supply alcohol to anyone, you've got to have a licence.
You've got to have it.
Yep.
And I know there are still a few clubs in the country, out of our 475 at last count, that don't have a licence and have a membership that bring their own, for want of a better term.
Very, very dangerous.
Okay.
But again, clubs enjoy a special place. They're not booze barns, they're not trouble spots. So a lot of these activities go unnoticed, shall we say.
Right.
Everyone needs to understand there is a provision in the Act that says keeping a place as a resort for the consumption of liquor, alcohol, even though it may only be once a week, could be a possible fine of $20,000. Now, I don't think the police would suggest for 1 minute that that's what they're going to do. They would first warn the club
without a
and
warning,
go
yeah.
through the process and give everyone a chance. So,
Yeah.
again, they use common sense. Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So for this one then, the practicality is that if you're going to be drinking on site,
Yeah.
you should have a licence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, this is coming back to what we're thinking these days. Amalgamation of clubs under one roof is the obvious answer. Simple as that.
At your expense.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. All right, well look, Graham, those questions have been very well answered. Thanks again for your time today. We encourage our clubs to get in touch with you if they have additional questions. We will show your contact details and those website addresses for the ServeWise and
Health promotion.
Health promotion.
Yep.
Quite right. We'll show those at the end of the video and promote those to clubs so that they can get some more information on that. I should remind clubs that whilst Graham's time here today has been gifted, it is his business. I'm sure he'll be friendly if he knows you from a bowling club, but he's in the business of making money and doing a good job for people, so don't expect this advice to come for nothing, but I'm sure his invoice won't be as savage as it might have been if you were a big conglomerate or something like that.
I'm happy to answer questions.
Great.
Yep.
Graham, thanks very much for your time. We really appreciate it at Bowls New Zealand. I know our clubs that are going to pick this up are going to get a lot out of the last 30 or 40 minutes or whatever it was that we talked for.
Thank you for your time.
Cheers.
Thanks, mate. Cheers. Right.